Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Miller. I'm one of the forecasters here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield, Virginia, and this is your Monday morning briefing. So, looking right now at water vapor imagery, you can see we have our two different tropical systems, Imelda and Umberto, off the southeast coast, with some tropical moisture streaming north of Imelda over the local area and the mid-Atlantic. Now, that is leading to some rain, which I will show here in 1 second. And we have had this light rain basically in the form of occasional drizzle and light showers. And that rain has overspread the area this morning and will continue to be possible through the day, gradually tapering off by Tuesday, kind of from north to south. Now, regarding Hurricane Umberto, it has maximum sustained winds now of 145 miles per hour as a Category 4 storm. However, it is still expected to make that hard right turn and move away from the mainland southeast coast later, both this evening into Tuesday, when it makes that turn. And then for Tropical Storm Imelda, the most recent update has not quite gotten the graphic updated yet, but Imelda is now 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm with a pressure of 988 millibars with the 11 o'clock update. And this system is once again expected to make that hard right turn later tonight into Tuesday and then head out to sea, moving away from the local area. However, even though both of these systems are moving away from the mainland US, we are still expecting the impacts in the form of higher seas and rip currents over the next several days. Regarding the rip current threat, we do have a moderate risk of rip currents today across Virginia and Maryland beaches, with a high risk for rip currents across the North Carolina beaches. But by tomorrow, all area beaches increase to a high threat, both for rip currents and for dangerous seas and surf conditions, with breaking waves of 6 to 11 feet possible on Tuesday and Wednesday. Looking at the general weather pattern over the next several days, right now we do have those light showers out there, mainly west of 95, but everybody could see some light showers throughout the day. And then again on Tuesday, the showers should taper off from north to south throughout the day, with high pressure building in by Wednesday through the later part of the week into the weekend, and dry weather coming in with that high pressure. As far as rainfall totals, right now we're not expecting very much rain at all from this system. Generally just a light coating for most of the area, a few hundredths of an inch up to around a tenth of an inch, with the highest rainfall totals, relatively speaking, in the southern Piedmont, where we could see around 0.1 to a quarter of an inch of rain. So nothing too much as far as accumulating rainfall, just enough to really keep everything damp out there. And then once again, once we have that high pressure building in by Wednesday through the end of the week into the weekend, we will see some dry conditions out here with no rain, no additional rainfall expected after Tuesday. Additionally, with that cold high pressure moving in, we will see our temperatures drop from the mid-70s today and tomorrow to high temperatures only in the upper 60s to around 70 by Thursday. And then that cooler weather continuing into Friday before a gradual warm up this weekend. Again, very relative terms, as we still are looking at high temperatures in the 70s. And then our low temperatures, we could actually see some pretty chilly nights out there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, with some low temperatures in the Piedmont in the upper 40s possible. And looking ahead even further into 8 to 14 day outlook, we're expected to be above normal temperatures with around normal to slightly above normal rainfall. Now on to the marine side. For today, we're not expecting any coastal flooding concerns. And tomorrow, generally not expecting much at all. However, we could have a few locations reach the nuisance flood stage at a few gauges. That's generally around a half a foot or less of inundation. However, by Wednesday into Thursday is when things really ramp up regarding coastal flooding, as we do have an increase in the gradient winds between the high pressure building in from the north and the low pressures offshore. And that will both allow for increasing winds, especially along the coastlines and the coastal waters, as well as pushing all that water into the bay and ultimately allowing for widespread minor and locally moderate coastal flooding for the middle to latter part of the week, with the greatest chance for moderate flooding across the lower James and lower bay. Well, really all of the James River and the lower bay. So once again, the graphic on the left is going to be Wednesday, and the one a little bit to the right is going to be for Thursday. Diving in a little bit more to the tidal forecast for the oceans at Duck, we are expecting them to get into a minor flood stage by Wednesday afternoon. And then over at Chincoteague, similar situation. Basically, most of our coastal areas by the Wednesday afternoon high tide, we're expecting them to get around minor flooding. For the lower bay and James River, again, it's really that Wednesday afternoon high tide when we're expecting things to ramp up, with widespread minor to locally moderate flooding possible. Here for Lynn Haven, we do currently have a forecast getting into moderate flooding by Wednesday afternoon high tide. And then that will continue. Our forecast doesn't go out far enough here, but the coastal flooding concerns will continue into the later part of the week, into at least Thursday, probably going a little bit beyond that, where we will see more rounds of minor flooding to locally moderate flooding. And then the lower bay and James as well. The Kiptapeak, we have minor flooding, but then over at the Pagan River at Smithfield, we do have them reaching moderate flood stage a little bit later on Wednesday. And a similar situation with the upper bay as well. As far as the marine conditions, we do have a gale watch up for the lower bay as well as the coastal waters in Currituck Sound. And that's going to be for winds out of the northeast at 25 to 30 knots with gusts up to 40 knots and seas of 12 to 15 feet. And that's going to be from Tuesday evening through Wednesday evening. Looking at the marine threats, we can see that for today, generally just elevated conditions, but conditions definitely deteriorate by Tuesday into Wednesday, where we have widespread significant impacts with local extreme impacts here. Generally, though, it's going to be significant as opposed to extreme, rather, and that's going to be really your indicator for gale conditions. As you can see here, wind gusts of above 34 knots and or waves of greater than 8 feet. For the marine wind overview, we are expecting maximum wind gusts over the next 72 hours of around 30 to 35 knots in the bay and lower James. And then for the coastal waters, around 35 to 40 knots north and 40 to maybe a little bit above 40 knots in the southern coastal waters. As far as timing goes, you can see that conditions just continue to deteriorate into early Wednesday before gradually improving. Emphasis on gradual on Thursday into Friday. And then looking at the wind gusts as well, you can see the greatest period of concern is going to be that late Tuesday through Wednesday period, with conditions improving by Friday into the weekend as that high pressure builds in. Regarding wave heights and seas, we are expecting significant wave heights of around 4 to 6 feet across the Chesapeake Bay, with significant seas of around 10 to 12 feet for most areas, maybe getting up towards 13 feet in the off the North Carolina coastal waters. And then as far as the occasional wave heights, or one every 15 to 20 minutes, we could see waves as high as 5 to 6 feet in the bay, maybe 7 or 8 feet at the mouth of the bay. And then for the coastal waters, we're looking at 15 to 19 foot occasional wave heights. And that's going to be from later Tuesday into Wednesday, with the worst or highest seas by Wednesday morning. And this is just another way to look at that, with the significant wave heights, again, around that 10 to 12, maybe 13 feet range. And you can see that seas do gradually subside by Friday into the weekend. And this just shows the Hansen plot, which shows that the different waves and what direction they're coming from. So we will have the southeasterly swell for Tuesday into early Wednesday with an additional northeasterly swell, and then eventually everything does become a northeasterly swell Wednesday into Thursday as it becomes all wind driven versus the additional swell from the tropical systems offshore. We will note that there will be a 7 to 9 foot long period of southeasterly swell in addition to the 9 to 13 foot short period northeasterly wind waves. And the combination of both the swell and the wind waves will result in dangerous marine conditions from Tuesday through the rest of the week, with improving conditions by Friday into the weekend.